Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
Well, we end today in Charlottesville, Virginia, where the city is bracing for a white nationalist rally on Saturday, protesting the planned removal of a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee from a downtown park. The Unite the Right event is expected to draw several thousands of people, including counter-protesters. In June, the KKK held a similar rally. More than 1,000 people joined that protest. After the hooded KKK members departed, police moved in and attacked the counter-protesters with tear gas and arrested 23 people. White nationalist Richard Spencer organized several similar protests earlier this year. City officials in Charlottesville have reportedly been looking at options to halt Saturday's Unite the Right event. A news conference is expected to take place later today to provide details about the plans for the rally.
Earlier this year, when the Charlottesville City Council voted to sell the statue of Robert E. Lee, white nationalist groups, including the Virginia chapter of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, filed a lawsuit against the city. A circuit court judge then issued a 6-month injunction to halt its removal. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, at least 60 publicly funded Confederacy symbols have been removed or renamed since the 2015 massacre of 9 black parishioners in Charleston, South Carolina, by a self-described white supremacist. To find out more, we go to Charlottesville to talk to Wes Bellamy, Vice Mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia, youngest person ever to be elected to the Charlottesville City Council. He is also the only African-American city councilor and has been leading the opposition to the Robert E. Lee statue in the city. Wes Bellamy, welcome to Democracy Now! Can you talk about your original push to have the Robert E. Lee statue taken down and what you ultimately got that isn't talked about as much, which is some kind of funds for reparations?
Yeah. So this all started nearly a year and a half ago in March of last year. I received several different phone calls, emails. There was a petition from a local student here in the area about an effort and a push to remove the statue of Robert E. Lee. People in Charlottesville have been talking about this for some years, but just last year there was a nuance in a bill that was vetoed at the State House by our governor that essentially said that if you want to move these kind of statues and things of that nature, it's a local issue, so you have the right to be able to do so. My colleague and I, Ms. Kristen Sakos, we both decided to push really hard. We held a press conference in which there were probably about 150 people who came out, about 80, or excuse me, I would say about 110, 120 people or so who were pro-moving the statue, and about 30 to 40 sons and daughters of the Confederacy who came with their large flags and very, very upset that we were pushing to do so. Subsequently, since then, there's been a lot of things that have transpired. I mean, I've received all kinds of death threats, been probably called every kind of N-word that you can think of, and it's been a very interesting topic, but I think that we have awakened, to say the least. We've seen a group of people here in our community who have been marginalized, who haven't necessarily had a voice. We're waking up and we're saying that we are going to stand tall. And in the midst of all of this, we also got an equity package passed, which I presented in January before we had our first vote, and it was unanimously passed, which gave us $950,000 to our African American Heritage Center, $250,000 to build onto one of the parks in the local African American community. We got $2.5 million to public housing redevelopment, $50,000 annually for anyone who lives in public housing to get free GED training, another $50,000 to anyone who lives 80% below the AMI, which is the annual median income, as well as public housing, to have scholarships of sorts to go to our local community college. We got a position for Black Male Achievement, which we're calling a Youth Opportunity Coordinator. So, I mean, in all, it was about $4 million basically from funding put specifically into marginalized communities to help bridge the gap and create equity. All of this is about equity. We need equity and not equality. Those are two different things. Equity is giving everyone what they need in order to have the same playing field. Equality is just giving everyone the same thing. I don't want equality. I want us to have equity, and we're going to push for equity in every space, whether that's public parks, whether that's in our city budget, no matter where it is, as long as I'm on council, and I'm going to push for it until the day I die.
Well, Vice Mayor Bellamy, the interesting thing, though, is that you were offered the majority agreed to the equity package as an attempted compromise to convince you to hold off on the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue. Could you talk about that effort on their part?
Yeah, so I think my colleagues, they wanted to see how we can find a compromise of sorts and move forward with the equity package. And I think I personally believe that all of my colleagues on council, they firmly also believe in equity. We may all have different ways in which we want to go about it. So we thought it was a great idea. When we had the first vote to move the statue, it's only 5 of us on council. It was a 2-2 vote, and one of my colleagues abstained. So it wasn't until our next city council meeting that Mr. Bob Fenwick decided to come on board and vote to remove the statue. So essentially, the statue was moved, or we had the vote to move the statue as well as getting the equity package.
And have you been surprised by the enormous backlash and these white supremacists organizing rallies in your town now?
No, sir. I'm a student of history. We see this is oftentimes what happened when you have, specifically, let's just call a spade, when you have African Americans who decide to stand up in non-traditional African American places, in places in which we haven't been very vocal or in which we haven't, quote unquote, caused trouble or stirred things up. Whenever we decide to do so, and our white brothers and sisters, our Latino brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters of different hues and persuasions decide to rally and ride with us, whenever you see that kind of uprising, the majority, and specifically individuals who believe that things should be the way they have always been, they normally push back. You've seen this from the 40s to the 50s to the 60s, and in no by shape, form, or fashion am I Dr. King or anything, but we've seen this kind of story and this playbook play out. There's always going to be met with opposition when you're doing something right. And I mean, the threats and the people who are saying they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and these rallies that have been coming about as of late, in my opinion, it just shows that we're doing something right. It's been troubling for many people in our community, but I think personally what I've often tell myself, and I tell the little kids who I talk to every single day and when we're walking around the city, in order for us to get to the clear water, the clean water, you have to go through the mud. And right now we're kind of in the muddy part, but I would much rather us go through the mud and get clean now than just pretend as if these issues don't exist and let's not do anything for another generation. I
want to turn to comments about the August 12th rally by the Unite the Right organizer, Jason Kessler, who posted the video on his Twitter account on Saturday.
These people who are trying to erase white people from history. And that's the other question. Like, is this a white supremacist event? This is not a white supremacist event. This is a pro-white event.
Can you talk about those who are saying don't go to this, what Jason Kessler is saying, who he is, and also, did you vote to remove or sell the statue?
Yeah, so there's several questions that you asked there. You were breaking up a little bit, and I couldn't hear the first two. What did you say?
Who Jason Kessler is, and those who are saying, like the University of Charlottesville president, encouraging students not to go to this rally, concerned about violence.
Yeah, well, I believe that I have a ton of respect for. Yes, I have a ton of respect for Dr. Sullivan, and I agree, you know, if some individuals choose to not attend the rally, that's their choice. But one thing that I believe that is important for us to all understand is that we have to allow people to express themselves as they want to. The same way that Mr. Kessler has the opportunity and he has the right to be able to express himself, other individuals have that same right. And if they choose to go to the rally, I don't want to get into a position in which I'm telling people, don't go and say anything, don't go and counter protest, because what we saw from the event that occurred on July 8th is that there are a lot of people from different persuasions. There are professors, there are people who live in the community, there are people who normally never protest, can be meek and they can be solemn. We have clergy people, all feel as if it's important for them to voice their opinion and voice their opposition. So again, I don't want to get into a point in which we tell people not to do so. As for Mr. Kessler, he is who he is. I don't have any ill will or anything to say towards Mr. Kessler. I actually went to church yesterday and we had communion and I forgave Mr. Kessler. So I mean, he is free to do what he wants to do. But as far as I'm concerned, we do have an obligation and a duty to keep people safe and make sure that everyone is protected. But I do want to encourage people, if you want to stand up and you want to speak out in whatever way you choose to do so, I respect you and I empathize with the fact that you want to do that.
Well, you've been having several meetings of your council to try closed-door meetings, largely to try to figure out how to handle the events that are coming up this Saturday. There was some talk of possibly moving the rally. What's been some of the discussion that you've had behind closed doors?
Well, legally, we can't discuss anything that we've been talking about behind closed doors or in any of our closed sessions. Sorry about that.
And this question of selling the statue or removing it?
Well, in regards to selling the statue, what we agreed to do was create an RFP, request for proposal, after the injunction is over for individuals, or excuse me, for entities. It's a very nuanced language, who may be, for example, a park service or a locality or a museum or things of that nature. They will have the opportunity to be able to purchase the statue. And it's not necessarily an auction, but some people have been describing it as an auction. The thing is this. We don't want to desecrate or dismantle or disrespect the statue in any shape, form, or fashion. I don't have any personal problems with Robert E. Lee. He is who he is, and I am who I am. But what we do believe is that that statue doesn't belong in the middle of our downtown, especially if we're a community in which we're trying to provide equity and we're saying that we're one of the best places to live in the country for all people. Then we have to make sure that we maintain safe spaces in our parks for all people. So in terms of selling the statue or auctioning it off, we just believe that it should be in a more appropriate place. So if there's a park service or if there is a civil rights museum, a Civil War museum, or somewhere in which individuals believe that they can pay the proper homage and respect to Mr. Lee through a government entity or something of that nature, then they have every right to auction off, or purchase the statue. And we received several calls for it.
Well, we want to thank you very much, Wes Bellamy, for joining us, Vice Mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia, youngest person ever to be elected to the Charlottesville City Council, the only African-American currently on that council, leading the opposition to the Robert E. Lee statue in Charlottesville, Virginia, the home of Thomas Jefferson. That does it for the show. If you'd like to sign up for our daily digest email list, get our headlines every day and news alerts, just text the word Democracy Now! Without a space, Democracy Now! To 66866. And you can get behind-the-scenes updates and stories from Democracy Now! On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more. Democracy Now! Produced by Mike Burke, Dina Guzder, Noreen Shea, Carla Wills, Laura Gottesdino, Sam Alcoff, John Hamilton, Robbie Karen, Honey Masood, Trina Ndura. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Thanks for joining us.